Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andrew Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bidner to discuss our thoughts on the potential of an achievement system coming to Nintendo Switch. So let's get started. Alright Derek, so this is potentially big news. I say potentially for a big reason here, which we'll get into in a second. So last night, or yesterday, the developer of Lichtsphere, a game coming to Nintendo Switch by an indie developer called Lichthund, I think? I'm probably terribly saying that.
They're Polish, so it's a little tough for us.
I already struggle enough with just saying English words. Anyways, they had an AMA on Reddit in which, they answer whatever you ask them. And someone asked, does your game have online rankings? If not, why? Then the developer responded, Nintendo doesn't have an official support for achievements and leaderboards like Sony or Microsoft, but we know that they're working on it. We'll see how it goes and we'll add the rankings along the way. So, based on that alone, obviously it sounds like achievements are coming to Nintendo Switch or something along, something of that nature. At the same time, do we believe this guy actually knows what he's talking about?
Yeah, that's the big question here, because would Nintendo discuss achievements coming to the system with all the developers, or would it just be a select few and then the others get updated later? I don't exactly know how that works.
Yeah.
They even clarified saying, basically like, oops, and like, move along, nothing to see here, and then like, no, but seriously, I have a really strong feeling they hinted at it a few times. So it's not concrete in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's just what this one guy's heard, and it seems like they've hinted at, but the fact that he says they have a strong feeling they hinted at it. So maybe it's like they hinted at something and he just interpreted it as achievements coming, or it could be something completely different. We don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, is he basing this off information he's heard himself, like, firsthand, or is it just based on information we've all heard and he's just interpreting it differently, or maybe there's something we forgot that Nintendo talked about? I have no idea. The fact that it's still up, though, is making me think that, he didn't break NDA or anything, obviously, given the fact that the comment's still up. I would think Nintendo would have contacted him by now. Although it is a weekend, so maybe no one has caught that yet. I'm not, who knows. But the story has blown up, and whether or not this comes to fruition, I think it is something worth discussing. And I'm sure we have talked about it in the past too. But now that now that it's potentially something happening, I thought it'd be fun for us to talk about. But Derek, before we continue on, so where do you fall on this though? Do you think it's happening, or do you think it's not? Based on this, if you had to choose.
Based on this alone, I don't think so.
Okay, I feel the same way.
Yeah, I think there's other evidence, and I think it makes sense in a lot of ways. But based on just this evidence alone, no.
Although, I will say the timing for this is interesting in that there have also been rumblings of a Nintendo Direct happening soon. And if there is, could this be an announcement as part of that, like as part of a big OS update? Maybe achievements or Nintendo's version would come to the Switch.
If I could see that happening, I could also see it being just a complete coincidence, because during my update about this, I even said that having achievements would be a good way to also be like, to basically promote their new online functionality. Whenever they launch Nintendo Switch Online and have everybody pay for this service, then I could see like that'd be a good one to add into as far as just everything else you can enjoy from it. Even though I'm pretty sure you can get achievements without actually being online. That's how it works with Sony, and I'm pretty sure Microsoft. It's just you get to share them online if you're online with them. So who knows? I could be completely wrong about that one, but those two events seem like the two big candidates to me.
Okay. So, so you're saying no. I'm thinking no as well. That this is actually happening right now. Just because Nintendo has really not shown any interest in this. They've dabbled in it in a few ways. Some games have had their own built-in achievement system. Like Smash Brothers, for instance, has that whole grid thing you unlock. Actually, pretty much every Sakurai game has their own built-in achievements.
Yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, Nintendo hasn't really said anything, and so far the Switch is doing fine without them. So it does kind of make me wonder, does it need it? And I guess maybe this is where we can get into the next part of the discussion. Is this something we want? And I say we in both a collective as well as an individual sense. So, Derek, what are your thoughts on this? And let's say achievements are coming. Is this something you'd be happy about?
I wouldn't have anything against them, honestly. I wouldn't, like, I don't think I'd be celebrating unless they do something really cool and unique with them. You know, maybe you get some kind of small reward for it. Like, I saw somebody suggest, like, maybe they will get, like, new themes or profiles if we do get all the achievements or get a certain level of achievements or something like that. That'd be a cool way to handle it. But on their own, they don't really do anything for me, but I do know that there are still a lot of achievement hunters out there, even though the achievements aren't really talked about that much when it comes to Sony and Microsoft anymore. Like, it used to be a huge deal.
Right.
Now it's just sort of settled into a nice plateau of interest. But for Nintendo games in general, I can see a lot of people going whole hog on specific Nintendo games, because that adds to the replay value quite a bit, and, you know, kind of bragging rights as far as that goes. I mean, imagine trying to get in the platinum, trying to get the platinum in Breath of the Wild. In terms of PlayStation, I'm used to PlayStation, so that's the terms I use.
Yeah. Well, you just turned me off so much more than you could have with that statement alone. Trying to get the platinum in Breath of the Wild, dear God. So yeah, I have very conflicting feelings on this, or maybe complex feelings on this. So on the one hand, I am like pretty much like principally opposed to achievements. I think they're a little bit gross, honestly. On the other hand, I also just don't care at all. Like, depending if they do it right, then it will. Hopefully, if they do it in a way that I would be happy with, then I won't end up caring about them at all. Unless they do it, unless they really pull it off, super well, and maybe I will care. I mean, I'm open to that possibility. My ultimate hope is that, well, a couple things here. So, for one, putting my own feelings aside, bringing achievements to the Switch probably isn't a bad idea, just in that it would maintain a parity with other systems. But I have seen people, for reasons I cannot fathom, that will be like, hey, I'm gonna pick up an Xbox or PS4 because they have achievements and I can't get those on Switch. So whatever the least amount of reasons possible for people to buy a system or a version of the game on the system other than Switch would be a good thing for Nintendo, because Nintendo wants people playing on Switch, and the less reasons people have to not do that would be a good thing for them.
Absolutely.
With that said, I would hope Nintendo does something unique with them, because Nintendo usually does tend to do things their own way, and I think this might be a good chance for them to iterate on it, especially because we actually have seen them dabble with this a little bit before, as I already talked about. But even on the Wii U, there was no official achievement system, but they did have the stamp system. You could unlock stamps in games by doing certain achievements. Unfortunately, you can only use the stamps in Miiverse messages for that game, but I can see something like that being applied in a more universal scale. Like, maybe make achievements have, make achievements a little bit more meaningful than just being an achievement. If you can do something with those achievements, that'd be cool. And one idea I had is, like, what if they embrace the concept of Mii's a little bit more? Like, we've got pins for your achievements, or certain achievements. You can pin these achievements to your shirt or something, your Mii shirt, and they will show up on there. So whenever you can check out like a fellow Mii and see what achievements they're proud of, and they can choose which ones they want to put on their shirt. Or go taking it a step farther, what if you had custom home screens? You got stickers instead. You plaster the stickers all over your home screen, wherever you wanted.
I like both those ideas. Either pimping out your Mii in some way, like having all these, like, I'm just imagining like a military general, like, these are all the battles I fought, this is all the wars I won,
right?
Facing off on all these things.
Make it social.
Yeah, exactly. Being able to share them in that way and kind of compare and whatnot. But it's also, I do like the idea of being able to customize your home screen as well, and have something unique in that way. Even there's a bunch of different ways that they could do this, and I think if they embrace that social aspect, that'll make them a little bit more attractive, at least to Nintendo fans. I don't know if other people with multiple consoles will care as much, but as you said, as long as there's less, like, the more parity they have, the less reasons they have to go to other systems.
Exactly.
And if they do that little bit of extra that people care about when it comes to their trophies, then or achievements, then yeah, go for it. And yeah, both of those sound like a really good idea to me. Or maybe even just swag, like you complete all these trophies or get all the achievements for this game, and you get a new hat for your Mii, or a new shirt for your Mii that has that.
Good point. Yeah, they could take it an extra step farther. Like, I remember when achievements were first announced, I think, if I recall, or back in the day. Like I think there was talk, or some people thought perhaps, like maybe if you do well in the game, you'll earn discounts or something, or earn something meaningful. And that never really amounted to it. Like it just gave you arbitrary points that adds to an arbitrary score. Which, by the way, oh my god, this reminds me of something, of a story. So when I used to work at IGN, I won't name any names here, but one of the ideas they had back in the day was that every editor would use the same Xbox profile. That way they could get all the achievement points across every game, have the top score. And I could not roll my eyes hard enough back then. Like, are you kidding me? This is what you want to do? Waste time on getting the highest achievement score? That was, yeah.
Some people get really into that.
They do.
Guess. I saw some people get really competitive when it comes to those. To achievements, and they had that draw. And the thing is, I could totally see that draw happening again just because it is Nintendo. Having to go for all those achievements in Kirby or Metroid or Pokemon. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Just those bragging rights. It'd be something. I think that's where the appeal really comes in, especially if it does come to the Switch. The sort of idea I had is, I don't know what form it would take or anything like that, but let's say you do get points or some sort of number for how many you've earned rather than just pins or whatever. Maybe you can go to like an achievement store and pick out like pins, accessories, themes, stuff like that based on what you've gotten. And nothing spectacular, nothing crazy, but just a little extra to show appreciation for playing the game as much as you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Like have the developers have their own little things to, like, hey, you did this, and you can wear this Rocket League pin or shirt or something like that, Yeah,
it actually reminds me a little bit of what Nintendo tried to do with StreetPass, where you would earn those coins on, the coins by walking around, or no, not StreetPass. What was the other one? The walking thing, where you walk, you got coins. Play coins.
Play coins, yeah.
Yeah, where you would earn play coins by walking around. You could use those in some games that supported them. Like, it was a universal thing, but then you could cash them in different ways depending on the game. Granted, that was a completely underutilized feature. Not a bad idea, though. Maybe they could do something along those lines with their own achievement system, whatever they... What do you think they would end up calling their own achievement system, by the way? Like, what... I mean, achievements are taken, trophies are taken. You go accomplishments... But that doesn't sound like fun enough to me. Like, if Nintendo really kind of like embraces their own quirky side, like with these ideas we have, they need something else. I don't know.
Yeah. You got achievements that lead to a gamer score. You have trophies, which again is a kind of a brilliant idea, especially having them ranked. Oh man, it's something for Nintendo to really call their own.
If they go with my pin idea, well, this actually doesn't work at all. Like, if they go with the pin idea, we pin to your shirt. Pintendo? Pintendos?
Oh,
Pintendo
God.
Points?
Oh god.
I don't know. They'll figure it out.
You just want the pun. Yeah, I'm sure they'll come up with something like probably something Mario related. Like my first thought was like earn coins, but again, maybe I'm on my achievement shop idea.
Can I just say, I was for the thumbnail I used for the update you put together. Like, I love the little exclamation block there popping up from Mario World.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I know.
that looked pretty good. It's like, I'd be down for that.
Makes a little coin noise or something where it pops up, or like the sound of a block being hit. Yeah, I mean, Nintendo could do it well. I think Nintendo has the potential to do it well. And you brought up something too. I think you touched on
Star points.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on something too with like, I think you mentioned something about how like, or you said something that reminded me of the fact that achievements can be addictive, and on a system where you can play it anywhere, that's kind of a good thing in a way, because that encourages people to play the system even outside the house, even more so, play it when they have the chance, earn more of these points. More people are seeing people play Switch. Like, it just kind of encourages, like, it just shows that the Switch is a big thing, and kind of like does its own marketing even more so then, right?
Yeah, and they already have that screen, that's share functionality thanks to the Twitter and taking screenshots and whatnot. Imagine being able to just expand upon that, being able to show on Twitter, hey, like, I got the 100% trophy or whatever for Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey or Pokken or whatever,
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, building off my previous point about being addictive, let me let me go on a bit of a monologue here about why I principally hate achievement points and why I've kind of had like contained myself so far in this discussion. So
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Feel free to chime in though whenever you want. So I think I have a whole list here of reasons why I don't like achievement points. The key one here is I feel like it kind of like appeals to some negative aspects of humanity, namely said addictiveness. And also kind of like materialism. Like, so many, like, people get addicted to collecting these things for the sake of collecting them. You're just filling out this list, like, just to have them all.
Isn't that a reason that Miyamoto came out and said was against them, like, during the Wii era and
Maybe.
the Wii U era? Like, because people had talking about it then, like, Nintendo, why don't you have your own achievement system? And I remember him being like, I want him to play my games, not just play it to get some points.
Yeah.
You know?
See, I totally respect that if that's the case. Like, I agree with that. I don't mind, I don't mind achievement-like systems when it's done on a per-game basis, where it's designed as part of the game, like Smash Brothers or again any of the Sakurai games. Like I think those actually handled it well, because it feels like they were kind of designed at one with the game. Whereas achievements so often feel like they're kind of like designed as an afterthought, only because they're required. Like they have to be there, so oftentimes they don't even make sense within the context of the game.
Congratulations, you beat the first level. Congratulations, you died to this.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and so I'm actually kind of just tying in all my things here. So as part of that too, like there's times where they completely feel at odds with the game design. Where I remember I was playing Flower on PS3, and I'm like, I was so at peace with that game. And like I beat a level, or I did something in the level, I can't remember. And like the little trophy thing popped up and made the noise, and it totally took me out of the moment. And it feels so cheesy when you're playing a game like, something cool happens within the context of the game itself, or a story beat happens or something, and you get that tacky-ass achievement thing popping up, reminding you, hey, you did something that filled out a checklist on this OS level checklist type thing. So I feel like, yeah, it kind of like, it feels like it can kind of trivialize the gameplay in a way, like, for instance, quite often I feel like now, what would be an Easter egg is now an achievement, and that takes away from it being an Easter egg. Now, instead of like coming across something cool, it's like, oh, this is something that anyone could have found by looking at a list, and you're just adding a check mark next to it.
There's actually there's an example of that for the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy. One of the cool bits we did was how you could skip the crystal, and you'd make Cortex madder and madder at Crash for like, come on, you idiot, get the crystal, and you just get more and more upset. And that's now an achievement.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Trophy.
Exactly. Like, do you think, do you agree with me, it kind of takes away from it if they do it that way?
I can see it taken away from in that way. I really can.
Makes it feel like a little bit less special. And then I guess my final point here is, I think they, again, this is on a per case basis, but I think they can kind of compromise how the game was meant to be played, or make you play in ways that weren't intended. And this is especially harmful in multiplayer games, where like you have to get 3 KOs a certain way or something. And I've heard of people like, where it affects how entire teams are playing sometimes. You can see people like trying to get achievements by doing something they wouldn't ordinarily do in a multiplayer game just to get an achievement. So this is an extreme example, but like what if there was an achievement for like stand around and do nothing for like 5 minutes in a multiplayer game? Obviously that's taking it to an extreme.
Yeah.
But
I will defend that one to a degree. Like, I know it can be annoying for a multiplayer game, but I also remember, like, I had really good times with Bad Company 2 playing with my friends. Not against them, but we would take turns passing the controller. And I think there was also, like, there's regular achievements, but also stuff in the game, like, get 3 knife kills in a single match, and you get this little bonus that'll help you out with later on. And, like it's not quite the same as achievements, but it's sort of that same idea. It did affect how we played during each match, but it felt like that fun extra challenge where we're still trying to win, but ooh, I can actually sneak up and knife this guy and get the achievement, get the bonus for that. So I can kind of see it, but again, if it's only for the achievement, that does affect things. But they find some way to integrate it into the game where you are getting some kind of reward, then I can kind of see it.
I mean, again, so much of it depends like on implementation, and if it's like designed as part of the game, that's when I minded less. But it's hard to tell sometimes, like when was it designed intrinsically as part of the game versus it just being there because it has to be there. That's why I like the Smash system, or the Sakurai system, if you will, because the games do feel like they were designed with that in mind. Whereas, yeah, other times it just feels like they just had to come up with, 100 reasons for you to do something, and here you go. So, yeah, so ultimately, I'm not a huge fan of them in general. I do think they kind of like, I don't like how they kind of feed on the addictiveness and the materialistic sides of gamers, which already exist in many other ways as well, like with special editions of games and whatnot. So I don't like that it's being an all-encompassing thing across every game. So I think there's two ways Nintendo could go about this especially well, on top of what we already mentioned, besides like adding their own twist to it, hopefully, and making it maybe a little bit more fun. But on top of that, I think, one, it has to be optional for developers, and I think Nintendo would do it that way. Don't mandate it. There should be a complete option. If a developer doesn't want to add it to their game, they shouldn't have to. Secondly, it needs to be an option for gamers. Allow me to turn them off completely. I don't want to see any notification ever. In fact, I don't want, like, if I can hide that entire infrastructure, that'd be perfect. So, if they accomplish those two things, I would probably be completely fine with them existing on Switch.
That seems like fair points to me. Like, you make it an option, because I know it's not just you. I know there's plenty of other people out there who find trophies and achievements to be utterly stupid and not really worth their time. And like this sort of like, why am I going to bother playing this game? Like, okay, and why am I going to bother playing this game and trying to do all these little minute things when all I get is a little trophy for it?
Yeah.
But then on the other side of that, other people really defend it because, all right, I'm going to get the most out of this game by doing all the achievements here and then moving on and actually get what I feel is the most value out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
because it sort of guides them along that way.
It's kind of like artificial value, though, right? I feel like that's almost like they're having like cognitive dissonance, so they have to justify why they're spending all this time to do these otherwise pointless tasks just to get these arbitrary points to your arbitrary score.
That is true, but I mean, it depends on the person. They find value. If they have fun getting those, I have nothing against it, which is why I don't mind the like your suggestion for an option to turn it off. That way, if it's arbitrary to you, great, turn it off. If it's not arbitrary to him, great, keep it on.
I think some people don't fully understand like what it's doing to them, though. Like, I think they do it, and I think they may think they like it, but I don't know if that's really the case. I think a lot of people, I mean, I think it's like, it's like being addicted to gambling or something, or any other negative thing, where it's ultimately bad on you, it's wasting your time, but you think you're having fun because it keeps triggering that, like...
endorphins that really fuel that addictive spirit.
Right, yeah. So it keeps triggering those, repeatedly, but you're not really getting anything of value, especially like long-lasting value. I don't know, for me, like, once I realized like how pointless achievements were, like it was like a light switch for me. Like I went from like being addicted to them to be like, I'm over them completely. Like I don't care about these at all anymore. It just feels like a fake way of adding to your game.
No, I can totally see that. I don't blame you for it at all. And I've found myself addicted to certain games, like in that way. Certain games I'll look at and like, well, I'm such a big fan. I need the platinum trophy for this. But then I'll get into the nitty gritty of it. It's like, no, screw this. Like I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. I don't bother with getting all the trophies because then I have to play a part of the game I don't want to play. In Kingdom Hearts 1 specifically, where to get the platinum, you have to do all this gummy ship stuff, and I don't mind the gummy ship, but I'm not going to spend all this time trying to get everything for it so I can get the platinum trophy for Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, no, screw that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, we'll see. I hope Nintendo handles it well if it comes at all, which it very well may not, and I'm still leaning toward it not at this point. But I'm open to the possibility of it, of it working, and I'll remain open to the possibility of maybe even me liking it. But just how they've been handled so far, I'm not a big fan of. So I'm hoping Nintendo does do it right. But I actually have a large amount of respect for Nintendo resisting so far, even perhaps to their detriment. Like, it may, it may not have been that big of a factor, but I'm sure it was a factor in the Wii U perhaps not taking off as well as it did. I don't think it would have saved it at all. In fact, I hope it wouldn't have, based on that alone, I should say. But, maybe, it's just another factor that probably didn't help them out. And the fact that the Switch still doesn't have it and is seemingly doing well in spite of it is a good thing. But now that the Switch may be reaching a broader demographic, both in terms of gamers, but also third-party developers, I could see why Nintendo may be reconsidering now, may be feeling it's time to bring achievements to the Switch. I just hope that, again, it's optional across the board.
Yeah, I really can't say much more than that. I hope they bring something unique, a unique twist to it if they actually do it. I don't know when they'll do it or how they'll exactly implement it, but I feel like they will have their own unique take on it that's probably going to feel Nintendo, and that might be good or bad to considering on the person. Like, they might be like, oh, this is so stupid. This is not like the achievements at all. This doesn't work at all. Or it could be like, okay, this is a brilliant new take on it. I am so down for this. You know, that sort of thing. If they do it, it's going to be one or the other. It always is.
It always leaves you guessing. So, Derek, before we wrap it up here, I did have actually one more example of like how I think achievements or trophies can negatively affect the gameplay experience. And one example that I want to bring up earlier that I totally forgot about until now is Uncharted. Now, it's not strictly a trophy thing, but it feels like something that was designed really, specifically for trophies in mind. And that is how they have treasure scattered all over the world. And those to me feel so completely separated from the gameplay experience that it actually hampers it. Like, if you actually go look for that treasure, which I had to do when I did the guide for Uncharted 2 at GameSpot, it's at the expense of the gameplay experience because for multiple reasons. One, it totally throws off the pacing. Like, if you're trying to escape, like you're trying to escape a bad guy, or like there's some reason you're like trying to hurry along the next section, you're spending your time like looking in corners of rafters to find like a treasure. Like, it takes you out of the experience, and you're doing this largely just for the trophy associated with it. Another one was that like it also exists largely outside the context of the gameplay too. Like, Drake doesn't say anything when you find the treasure. Like, it exists literally outside of that world for the most part. Like, it has nothing to do with what you're doing in the game. And so I thought that's like almost a perfect example of where
you pretty much nailed it. Like, they are only there for the trophies, and I remember trying to do that on my own because I want to collect them all and get that trophy back in the day. And I often remember myself like, is it down this pit? Is it down here? Is it around here? Am I missing something? And I constantly throwing myself and killing myself trying to find it, just seeing if I could find other things. And you're right. Also, this building's on fire, but could be trinkets around, so let's find those. And it really does throw off the pacing. Now, I would be more forgiving of this if they added context to it, because usually when you grab it, you just twirl it around like, yep, this is an object related to this area, but it doesn't tell me really anything. Like, tell me more about this trinket that I just found. And that's what Tomb Raider does. Like, you find these like other things, and Laura will have these new things like, oh, it's done by this, and here's the history of it, and this is what they probably used it for. Like, that's interesting. It adds context to the world, makes it feel more alive, and Uncharted doesn't do that. It's just there for, hey, here's some collectibles outside of the precursor orb that's always a throwback to Jak and Daxter. yeah. I mean, you said it right there. Like, so much of it again depends on like implementation. But I think this is an interesting example of how people who like achievements may be liking them at the expense of the gameplay experience. Now, granted, not everyone may agree with me on those points I just brought up. Although I think they should. But how, like, how in this case finding treasure in Uncharted does come at the expense of the gameplay. Like, it throws off the pacing, which is so carefully designed. It feels like the treasures are just thrown in there after like a B team to, to fill in that trophy quota. So in this case, even if you like achievements and you don't have any issues I have with them, this is an example where going after them may come at the expense of your enjoyment of the overall experience without you really even consciously realizing it. Yeah, because I mean, if I ever went for them, it wasn't during my first playthrough. It would always be a second playthrough.
That's the way to do it,
I started looking for it. Yeah, because I don't want to ruin that experience. Like, hey, I found it while I'm searching around. That's cool, but...
Well, Derek, any final thoughts at all you want to wrap up here with?
Not offhand. It would be weird to just play through Super Mario Odyssey and all of a sudden it's like, congratulations, or Bowser beaten, or something like that, or my hat's off to you as your final trophy as you beat the game.
That'd be a fitting achievement.
Thanks, the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be surreal to have achievements pop up for Mario games and the like.
Yeah, when you mentioned Metroid earlier, I'm like, oh god, I really don't want achievements in Metroid. Like, that to me, of all like Nintendo games I can think of right now, like, that's the one that seems to be most at odds with it. It's so built on like, it's so often built like isolation and not any formal interface, and having these achievements pop up from the system as you're doing things, I think would kind of trivialize your actions.
To a degree, although I will say that you talked about Flower, and I think they learned from that because if I remember correctly, Journey had the thing where the trophy would not pop up right when you did it. It didn't actually pop up until you beat your campaign.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the game was a lot shorter, but perhaps Metroid could do something similar to that, where they don't interrupt the flow.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, it's so much of it is about the implementation. You could implement them well, as we've seen, as I've already mentioned before, the Sakurai games. it just feels so often that they're not implemented well, and they're just there because they have to be.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe have an option, like there's an option saying showing your achievements where you can actually check it in game, just not have the pop-up thing show up, and be able to say, okay, I did do this one, so I don't have to worry about trying anymore, and then you get all the notifications at the end if you want, or something like that. There's a ways around it. It's just a matter of if they actually do it or not.
I agree with all of that. Alright, well, I think we're about done discussing everything we can about achievements so far. We'll see, though, if there's more that comes out of this, you know, if there's an upcoming Direct soon, so that'll be big news if so. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on Nintendo Switch and everything else Nintendo as well. And make sure to follow and like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain using the links in the description below, as we keep updating everything we post. Alright, catch you later. Bye.